now you can see, ta-da! After it's done all the calculations with the textures, it is now ready. So wherever we put this, you can see our ring of portal fire going all the way around our hole. And if we grab this and move it, it's going to follow exactly wherever this empty is. It looks like it's like burning open, which is exactly what happens when you actually shoot a portal onto a portal surface. Welcome to Blenderfrenzy. I am Justin, and this is a portal mini-series where I show you how to do something like this. And you can see this is just a plane with a portal opening up on it. So if I just scrub through here, you can see what's happening. And if I turn on my overlays, you can see. Let's hide my lights. Okay, just keep that one on, and you can see this little guy here we're using as an object in order to affect our opening and closing of that portal. So that's what we're going to be going over today. This video is a part of a series, and if you want to check out the whole series, head on over to my new website, Blenderfrenzy.com, where you can access lots of free and members-only content, including extra tutorials, downloads, assets, blend files, Q&A live streams, and much more. Signing up helps support me, which in turn gives you more Blender content, so head on over to Blenderfrenzy.com and become a member today. So here's a bird's eye view of the whole node system I have set up. I put it full screen in case you want to take a screenshot. But yeah, this is the setup that I have, and this is what we're going to go over today. So open up a fresh instance of Blender. We're going to get rid of the default cube and add in a plane. I'm going to rotate that on the X 90. And just to make sure that this is the front, we're going to come over here to face orientation and make sure this is blue, the one facing this way towards this camera. Well, not towards the camera, but in the general direction. Blue is the front, red is the back. Okay, let's turn that off again. I'm going to go 1 into front orthographic view. For this, I'm going to pull up a shader editor, and we're going to go into material preview mode here. And then with our plane selected, we're going to click new to create a new material. I'm going to title this matte portal wall, and might as well title this portal wall over here. Okay, I'm going to get rid of the principal BSDF shader now, and then it goes black. Let's close that. Let's add in a texture coordinate. If you have their node wrangler on, which you can go over here, preferences, add-ons, type in node, and just check node wrangler, then you can Control Shift and hold those down and click. And if I just click with those held down, it will cycle through these. And we want to have the object showing. And so now you can see this coordinate system with colors and the lines where the colors merge. So right now this is representing the plane or the portal wall coordinate system. So wherever this origin is, that's where these are going to cross. So if I change that origin by coming up to options, affect only origins, and I drag this around, you can see that coordinate system is following. So I'm going to right click there and uncheck origins because we're going to use something else for the origin. But before that, let's put in a mapping node. This is going to be a good idea. Texture coordinate mapping nodes usually go together. And that's just because we can change these. If we drag these sliders and change those, you can see that changes the coordinate system. Let's pull this down a little bit here. And then same thing with the rotation. You can see it changes the colors on that rotation, and same thing with the scale. And again, this is all part of the object, the plane object's coordinate system. But we're going to add in an empty, and we're going to use that coordinate system instead. So with this empty, I'm going to press in and open up the transform tab. This is on our item tab, the first tab, and make sure transform is open. The X and Y I'm going to change to 0.55, making this portal shape. And this is what's going to be used to make our portal open and close. Now that the portal is selected, I can't see my nodes anymore because I don't have the plane selected. So I'm going to select the plane and then click this pin so that even if I have the portal empty selected, we can still see the nodes for the portal wall. But if I move the portal empty, let's rename this to portal empty. If we come down here to our object, we can select portal empty and let it think. And now the colors change and the portal wall is now using the coordinate system of the empty, which is going to be very useful for us in just a little bit. So now we need some information to tell the wall where the outside and the inside of this portal is. So the very first thing we need, can you guess, is a vector math. And we're going to change this to length, obviously. Actually, that's not obvious at all, but that's what you change it to. Let's Control-Shift-click that and plug that back in. And now we have this information here. It's just have a little bit of black in the middle and then it fades into white here. I'm going to also come over here to Render Properties, scroll down, Color Management, change Filmic to Standard. That way we have a true black and white mask here, which is what we're trying to create. But you can see if I drag and I move that empty, it's going to show that wherever the center of the empty is. But this is a little too small. We can make that inside of the portal bigger by adding a math node, put that in there, and use add. Haha, no, just kidding. We're going to use subtract, which is also not all that obvious. Although you can think of it as we're subtracting more from this. So right here, we can drag that value up and make the portal bigger or smaller. And if we put it at 1, you can see it is pretty much the exact same size as our empty. It's a little bit bigger, but you'll see why here in a second. So now we have the inside of the portal all black and the outside white, which with masks, white is fully visible, black is fully invisible. But right now we want to focus on the ring. So we just want to get the ring. And to do that, let's duplicate this one and change this to absolute. And now we have this ring. But this is inverted because we actually don't want the ring to be invisible. We want everything else to be invisible and the ring to be shown. So we need to invert these. And to do that, we can add in a map range node. And then we can actually also change the size of the ring by sliding these values. You can see that. Same thing with these down here. But I'm going to actually leave these at 0 and 1. And then if we change these, so if the minimum is higher than the maximum, then it will invert itself. So it has to be higher than 0.8, and then we can bring that max down. But let's do, actually, I'm going to make the max 0, and then this is going to be 0.04. There we go. So you can see if I hold down Shift and drag in that field, we can get more accurate result, but you can make this as thick as you want. So I'm just going to keep that at 0.04, which is really nice. And if we look, you can see that our empty lines match perfectly right in the middle of that ring. But it poses a bit of a problem with the tops and the bottoms. Now we could scale it on the Z and bring that down because, you know, this is going wherever our empty goes. But I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do instead is come back out here and we're going to change this to 0.9. And that's just going to bring everything inside that empty, so the empty surrounds everything. So wherever we fit the empty, we know that portal is going to fit. Okay, so right now it's just a ring, but let's make it more exciting. So I'm going to turn off our overlays. I'm going to come over here before our length, and we're going to add in a noise texture. And let's just plug this in real quick so you can see what that is. Noise texture is like clouds. and you can change the scale, the detail, the roughness, and the distortion. So I'll let you play with all of those. I'm going to come back to these and tweak these a little bit later, but what I am going to do first is change this to 4D because we want to make this move. We want to make it look like animated clouds. So once it loads here, we can click and drag in here and you can see that it moves. Now it's going to look pretty fast. If I hold shift down, you can see I can go a little bit slower, but I'm going to make this move with our frame. So if I click in here, do hashtag or pound, frame, enter, and then we press play, you can see it goes really, really, really fast. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the in frame to 10,000, hover down over the timeline, press home, and that way we have plenty of leeway here before it actually starts to repeat. But here I'm going to click in here and then do divided by 100. Okay, and it slows it down. That's still a little too fast, so I'm going to add another 0, and there we go. We have this like nice kind of misty cloud type of animation. Cool, so we're going to use this to plug into our ring. So I'm going to duplicate this length node, put it here, change it to add, because we're adding this to that, but let's plug that back in here. And then we can plug this right in here, and then plug this in there, and wait for it to load. And there we go. So something has happened, but a lot has happened. Okay, so the first thing is if we bring the scale all the way down and the detail all the way down, you can kind of see here is our ring. It's doing something. It's doing a lot, but it's offset. It's down here because for some reason it adds 0.5, and I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but to correct it, what we can do is duplicate this and put subtract here. We're going to subtract once it loads. So if the middle here is 0 and the edge is 1, then 0.5 is about here, and it's on all axes. So same thing, 0, 1. So basically it's taken it from up here and went 0.5 and then 0.5. So to compensate, we're going to subtract 0.5 back to the original position. Okay, so now we can bring up the scale again and the detail and maybe the roughness, bring that up. So now you can start to see we've got some stuff going on. This looks more like sparklers or something, but we've got a good start. So let's see, what do we do with distortion? I'm going to leave that at 0, and then we'll bring this down. Yeah, something like that. And detail, we don't want too much of that. Scale. Okay, so this is kind of like all over the place, and we need a little bit more control with the thickness and the noise, basically. We can affect the noise here, but we need a little bit more control. So to do that, we want to add in a scale. So duplicate this vector math node, and my computer's going really slow. I guess it's maybe because I'm recording and I have a couple instances of Blender open, but we're going to change this to scale. And so this is going to help us scale the ring of our portal. So if I do this, you can see it does. It does, so I can make it more contained and thinner, and now it's not hardly doing anything. But again, we've offset it. So if I scale this to 0, then nothing is happening, which is cool. But again, we've compensated with 0.5 here. So then we'd have to change this to 0 in order to get that. But then if we want to change it a little bit here and tweak it, and then we'd have to come here and compensate for how we tweaked it. But there's an easier way. So if I duplicate this scale and change these to 0.5 here, and we'll plug that in just like that. And it might help loading everything if I press pause for a second. But but okay, so these are the same scale, which they need to be, but instead of having to change two of them, we just add in a value and plug this in. Let's move these here and plug this in here. And now, no matter what we put here, it's going to offset it by that 0.5, and the scales are going to be the same. So it stays right in the middle. And now we have a lot more control of the craziness of this portal. So let's press play again, see what that looks like. Yeah. So then we click and drag. You can see we've got some cool stuff going on here. All right, so I like this, but let's turn this off. You can see we've got a rough area here, and then we've got smooth area. Then we got some rough area here and smooth area. So even though we've got this kind of like fiery thing going on, it's not really moving anywhere. It's just kind of staying there. So we want to see if we can rotate this. So to do that, let's add in a vector rotate. And then if we change the angle, if we go up, then it's doing something, but it's rotating on the wrong axis. And you can see the 1 is on the bottom, and if we open up our axes or our transform, you can see the location rotation scale are all X, Y, Z in that location. So it's changing it on the Z axis. So we're going to make this 0 and change it on the Y axis. So make that 1. And now if I do the angle, it now is on the y-axis. And the reason is, let me just show you. So on the 1, see, we're looking at it straight on. So the z-axis is up and down. So if we rotate that here, we're rotating it on the z, but we want to actually rotate it on the y like this. So that's why we're changing this to here. So now it's rotating around the right axis, but it's not rotating the way we want. And you might have guessed it's because of that 0.5 thing, which again, I'm not a math person, so I don't know why that is. I just know CG Matter has said so. So I'm going to add a 0.5 in here, and then that compensates for that. But now you can see if I rotate this, the rough areas and the smooth areas are rotating around the ring. So we can do the same thing here and add hashtag frame. And that's going really ridiculously fast with just the frame. So divided by 100. Okay, that's way too slow. So I'm going to do 50, try that. And that is still really slow. So I'm going to go down to 20. Let's see what that looks like. There we go. So now you can see the smooth areas and the rough areas are kind of like winding around clockwise. Perfect. That is pretty much what we want. I'm going to adjust this just a little bit more to make it a little bit more fiery like. If I bring up that scale, yeah, that just adds a little bit more like fire puffy type thing, whatever. Okay, so we've got a nice ring of smoke, but we want to add some color to make it more fiery. So pretty easy, just add in a shader, mix shader here. We're going to put this in the factor, and the factor always affects the bottom shader. So we're going to put an emission into the bottom, and I'm going to pause that and then plug that in. Okay, so now it's using the emission shader, which is still white. So if we change this, we can change the color to make it a more portal-y looking thing. So press play, and that's what we have. Okay, but now it just looks like orange smoke. So we need to add a little bit more flare. Now we could bring the strength up, which actually does a lot. But usually with something like this, the middle actually is white. If you have a hot fire in the middle, it's going to be like pure white. So let's add in a color ramp, plug that into the color. And for this, I'm going to actually mute the add and subtract so that we can just have our regular ring here. Because with the absolute, what the absolute is doing, it is calculating basically the edges of the empty, what is on the outside and what is on the inside, and it kind of mirrors them. And that was, if we just plug this back in, you can see it mirrors. So it started off pure white here, and then it fades to pure black, and then going inside, it fades to pure white. So it's kind of like a mirror image, but if we invert that like we did here, it's the same here. So it starts off black, fades to white, and then fades to black again. So we're going to use that here in the same thing. So we got black to white, but we're going to change these. So we're going to change the black one to a kind of a reddish fire. And then we can keep that white there, which is kind of cool. But I'm going to add in the middle, we're going to change this one to kind of like, yeah, a yellow. More, yeah, like yellow type of thing here. And then we can adjust these. This is orange. I'm going to make this more of a red. Then we can adjust these to make these more kind of prominent. So we're going to try to make that white in the middle. Yeah, so something like that. And maybe even more so. Yeah, something like that. There we go. Okay, and just to mess with these, you can also mess with the strength here. If we pull that up more, it's a little more prominent or more soft. 3.2 looks fine for now. Let's unmute these over here again, so we can see what that looks like. Yeah. So now we're getting a lot more like fiery puffs. All right, cool. That could be a little bit better, but we're going to leave it here for now like this. Now, we want to make everything else transparent, and it's very easy to do. All we have to do is add a shader, transparent shader, plug that into the top shader, and boom, we have this, which looks ugly. Looks like we backtracked. Well, we didn't. We just need to change our blend mode. So if we hover over here, press N, come to the Options tab, which is down here, you can see these options. Change blend mode under Settings to Alpha Blend. Okay, so now everything is transparent except where our ring of fire is. Down, 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 the burning ring of fire. So we are almost done. We just need to add in our portal surface to put the portal on. So to do that, I have the perfect texture. I'm just going to click and drag right in here. This is from Pixabay, and it's just a concrete texture, which works out perfectly. It looks like a portal surface. So we want to make the hole in the middle where our portal opens. So to do that, let's grab in the subtract, duplicate that, change this to greater than, and we're going to use the length. So what this is going to do is going to use, if we plug that in, you can see here's our mask. So greater than is showing everything that's greater than the length here, which was what we have from our coordinate system, which right here is exactly what you see, which means the inside is going to be transparent, the outside is going to be fully opaque, and there's no feathering. It's like a hard line. So we're going to use this. With this, we're going to mix that using a mix shader. Place this on the bottom, because remember the factor, which is what we're going to use the greater than here. The factor affects the bottom shader. And then we're going to plug that in. Okay, now it's still black because we need to take this transparent shader, plug it in, right above here. And now we have our portal hole. And just for future reference, you can always switch these and it will invert it. And now everything on the inside is what is going to be shown. Same thing happens with the greater than. You can choose less than and it does the same thing. It just inverts that. So now it's on the outside. But I'm going to choose greater than again, and we're going to pull this back over here just like that. Okay, so now where we have our empty, it's going to show the portal hole. And if I grab it on that Y, move it back and forth, you can see it opens just like that. Cool. We are almost done. Now we just need to add these together, mix these together, just plug this one. Whew, and I haven't saved this yet, and Blender almost crashed, so I'm going to save this. And now we can come over here and take this and plug this into the shader and plug this in. Wow, my computer's going really slow. But okay, now you can see, ta-da! After it's done all the calculations with the textures, it is now ready. So wherever we put this, you can see our ring of portal fire going all the way around our hole. And if we grab this and move it, it's going to follow exactly wherever this empty is. So you can control the size. You can even scale it down like this. This is what I did originally, but it doesn't look as good as just doing this. It looks like it's like burning open, which is exactly what happens when you actually shoot a portal onto a portal surface. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you don't know what portal is, you have lived a very sad life, because it's only the best game in the entire world. And here you can tell by my background that I like Portal. This is actually a dual screen one where it's not working now. I don't know if that's because of OBS Studio or my settings or whatever, but you have one guy starting on one screen and then you have the other guy coming out, or it's the same guy, his head coming out on the other screen like he's portaling between them. But anyway, so what we can do is we can actually, let's do rendered mode here, and we're going to add real quick, do our monkey head, grab that on the Y, pull that back, just scale that down a little bit, and let's go in here, align view to center view to cursor, Control Alt 0 to put our camera there, and then we can pull this guy up like that. And let's take this, we're going to take this light, duplicate that on the Y, pull that over here, and duplicate it one more time on the X, pull it over here, and bring both of these down on the Z a little bit. Let's scale them apart from each other just a little bit. We're going to get that. It's pretty good. Good enough for the lighting. And then for this is still, our concrete is still just emitting light, so it doesn't have any shadows or anything. So instead of plugging this straight into the mix shader, what we're going to do is, normally actually what I would have done is used an emission shader. So just duplicate that and then put that here, and that's too bright because we have it at 3.2, so change that to 1. So this is what I normally would do, because a mix shader mixes shaders, so this is a shader. But we're going to actually change this by pressing Shift S to change this to a principled BSDF, so we can change that shader. Okay, and so now the concrete wall is receiving light, and we can use the 3D cursor, since it's right in the middle there, to scale that light a little bit closer. There we go, something like that. Okay, so let's animate this real quick. Let's go to, let's see here, let's just go to frame, I'll go frame 40, select our empty, I location, we got a keyframe on the location now. Now I'm going to go to frame 20, grab that on the Y, so G and then Y, and then put it here, I, another location. And now if we play this, All right, that's a little bit too fast, so I'm gonna grab this last one here and move it up. There we go, like that. And we can just take both of those, duplicate them, and let's say right here. Then we want to flip them around. Let's flip them around from here. So with those two selected, S to scale -1, and that flips it. And then let's bring this back to frame 110. There we go, beginning and play. And we can see whoosh, that opens and then it closes. And then we can end it at frame 160, copy, paste that. And now it will loop. And if we turn off our overlays and go into camera mode, this is what we have. And now you have a fiery portal ring that opens up on a portal surface. So I hope this tutorial was useful and you get a whole lot of good ideas for a whole bunch of things that you could use this effect for.